Hey, everybody. Welcome to the discussion on raising money for real estate investing. My name is Julie Hoffman, for those of you who don't already know me. I have some good news and I have some bad news. I'm going to start with the bad news. The bad news is Mike may not be here. He might join us later. He had, I made a mistake on the scheduling, so he wasn't able to attend tonight after all, which is a disappointment, but at the same time, I've got some great stories to tell. We'll do some Q&A. So it's still going to be great. And plus, we have 2 more sessions coming up where we're going to be having discussions with Mike for sure. And we're going to add an additional one to that as well. All right. So first things first, raising money. You're here because you want to learn more about that, either because you don't have any of your own money, or you ran out of your own money, or you have your own money, but you don't want to use it. Or maybe a combination of all of the above. I've been in your shoes pretty much no matter where you are at. I've had no money and I've had to run out of my own money, and I've had money and not wanted to use my own money. So I get where you're coming from, regardless of what pair of shoes you're wearing tonight. And want to let you know, just as far as what's happening, is I'm just going to share some stories. And at the end of each story, I'm going to say, does anybody have any questions about that particular scenario? Because they're kind of different scenarios. And if they don't, if you don't, I'll move on. No hard feelings whatsoever. And at the end, I'm just going to share some information on some upcoming training that we have going on. I encourage you to attend the other sessions. There will be a link around here somewhere for the recording, and everybody will get the recording on how to participate in what we have going on coming up starting at the end of January. So let's begin. I've been investing in real estate, just to share a bit of my story. I've been investing in real estate since 2001. At the time, I was 6 months pregnant with my first child. We bought 3 properties, and then I had her, and my life changed forever, and my world turned upside down because I fell madly in love with her, just like any parent does. And I knew I wanted to invest in more and more real estate. So we got started by getting a HELOC on the house that we lived in. And so we raised money right away, basically from the bank, in order to put down payments on houses. And we also partnered up with a partner, and we all combined. He had cash, we had line of credit money, and that's how we got started. And we went on to buy just a lot of property. Since then, I've done over 300 deals. I've been to the top of the mountain, to the bottom of the ocean, or the depths of hell is actually how I'd put it better, and managed a way to rebuild and build myself back up. And I have an amazing team, and we're able to do great things, and I'm very fortunate. And raising money was absolutely crucial. We never would have bought as much as we had we not been able to raise money. So we combined our efforts, bought some properties, ran out of our own money. So I started attending seminars, and I'd already been attending seminars, and I went to a fast track event back in about 2003. I've got some notes over here if I'm looking over here, just if you're curious. And Fast Track was owned at the time by a guy named Darren Weeks. And he said, you know, I met him and we knew each other, and I'd always ask him for advice and help and things like that. And one time I met this guy, I can't even remember his name, at an event. And I had done a 20-second infomercial where I got up and I said, I'm investing in real estate and we have some deals. If you want to be a joint venture partner, come talk to me, in a nutshell. So this guy came up to me, let's call him Gary. I wish I remembered his name, but I don't. And he said, I'm interested in real estate. I'm interested in being a joint venture. And I was like, oh my God, you are? So I gave him a piece of paper that had information on it. It actually was like front and back, way too much information. I told him all about it. I talked his ear off. He started to kind of back away for me. I should have noticed that as the first sign of, I think I was overwhelming this person. And so he made the biggest mistake of probably his week or month, and that was to give me his phone number. I proceeded to stalk him, call him multiple times. Aaron, you kind of maybe know how I feel. I call Aaron about once a month, invite him to my real estate investment meetings. And anyway, I stalked him, and I finally got the hint, you know, he just after 26 voicemails, that I don't think this guy was going to call me back. So I gave up. And then we went to visit our friends with our little kids. We went out to visit Trevor and Vanessa in Stony Plain, and we stopped at the Pizza Hut to get supper. And out walks Gary. And I'm in my car. Jeff, my husband, is in Pizza Hut picking up the pizza, and I just ducked behind my dashboard, and I was absolutely so embarrassed. I don't think he saw me. Had he seen me, I'm sure he would have been lovely, but I was completely embarrassed. So went on to another networking event, because I'm not, just because I was embarrassed doesn't mean I was going to give up. And I went up to Darren and I said, what should I do? No, I'm not raising any money. And he said, well, tell me about your upfront contract. And I said, my upfront what? What are you talking about? And he said, yeah, tell me about your upfront contract. What kind of sales training have you taken? And I'm like, sales training? I haven't taken any sales training. He's like, well, no wonder you haven't raised any money. I was trained as a physical therapist. You know, I didn't have any kind of business training whatsoever, other than I was raised by an entrepreneur. So I had gone to work with my dad. My dad was a real estate investor. I know, big surprise. I'd gone to work with him. I'd heard his sales calls. I'd sat in on meetings. So there's something that got, you know, ingrained in me. I'm confident of that. But it was clear that I needed to take sales training. So I did. And I took this fantastic training called Sandler Sales Training. My teacher was Colleen Madsen. And I signed up. And before I even had my first class, I had already met this dentist. And I'd met him and I'd given him information. I'd met him, I'd given him more information, answered his questions. Going into my third meeting, I'd shaved my legs. I'd got a babysitter, curled my hair, put a nice dress on. I was somehow able to find one because with two little kids under two, basically. I had Irish twins. So I had two kids within a year of each other. They're 360 days apart. Anyway, I am like, what am I going to say to this guy? I don't even know what to say. So I called Colleen, and I still use this line. Still use this strategy today. I said, I've given him all the information. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And she said, walk in, do your pleasantries, because you got to do that. You know, you got to do the pleasantries, and then sit down, and then just ask him one question. Ask him this. Is there any reason you would not want to move forward with this opportunity? And I was like, okay, I just kind of memorized it on the way up the elevator, you know. And I sat down, and I was so used to talking. That's what we like to do as entrepreneurs and networkers and all that kind of good stuff. So used to that I really had to control myself. We sat down, we had pleasantries, and I just said, Cliff, is there any reason you would not want to move forward with this deal? And the most important advice that she gave me was not only those words, was shut up afterward. Don't say another word, even if it feels uncomfortable. And after what felt like an eternity, he just sat there and he looked up and he said, well, I probably need to see the properties. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to have to curl my hair again. Okay. I didn't say anything though. I just nodded. And I still didn't say anything, because then what he said was, I can always do that. Let's sign things up and I'll write you a check. And I tell you, it was magic. I'll never forget that moment in my life. And then another funny thing happened, and that was that the investment was $37,000 to be invested in 2 deals in Edmonton. No bank qualified. One of them was in Beverly, and the other one was in the south side of Edmonton, in Edmonton, obviously. And the check was supposed to be for $37,000, but he wrote it for $34,000. And I was just like, it was still more money than I'd ever seen at once in my entire life. I used to make $4,000 a month as a physio before tax. And anyway, so I had to say to him, Cliff, it's $37,000. And I was totally like, this is it. He's not going to do it. He's going to change his mind. But no, he just like, oh, okay, let me correct that. He went and he wrote another check and it was perfectly fine. I walked out of that office, just skipping across Jasper Avenue in Edmonton with my curled hair and a $37,000 check. And it was absolutely amazing. So some lessons I got from just this first situation, you know, was first of all, sales training. Sales training is so important. And there's so much free sales training out there, and so much excellent free sales training. So I really strongly suggest that you look into sales training because it's so important. I, as a coach, do train people in sales, and of course I specialize in real estate, but I work with other kinds of businesses too. Anybody that wants to sell and wants to sell better, really. Doesn't matter about that. Get trained in sales and know how to close. And that is how I close every day to this day. Because I said to Cliff, is there any reason you would not want to move forward? And he said he did have something, right? But what I'm looking for here is a no, actually. Even though, you know, it sounds contrary. Because if there's no other reason for somebody, if there's no reason for somebody not to move forward, then you want to hear them say no. And then great, let's move forward. Or it's yes, and it's something you can't control, right? But know how to close for sure. Take sales training. If you're doing 90%, if you're doing 90 to 100% of the talking, something's wrong. That's what I did. I did so much of that in my first networking experiences. I just talked and talked about the RAIN group. That was part of the RAIN group. And I talked about properties that we already owned, and I talked about opportunities, and I just talked, and I didn't listen. So you need to be listening 90% of the time. I didn't pre-screen Gary at all. I didn't ask about his job. I didn't ask about his income. I mean, I probably wasn't going to ask about his income at a networking event, but I sure as heck can ask about somebody's job. I can ask about their family life. I can ask about what kind of hobbies they enjoy. I can ask how long they've been at their job. All these things can give you so many clues into whether or not somebody is a fit to work with you. And I met Cliff, who ended up writing me a $37,000 check, guess where? At a networking event. And I let him talk. I remember because I took sales training. No, I didn't. I hadn't taken sales training yet. Okay, so that's so funny. I'm such a dork. But another thing that Darren told me, and that I learned in these seminars that I attended, another thing he said, you've got to listen. You've got to ask questions. And if somebody is a dentist or an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, they probably can qualify. They probably are qualified to work with you. So I knew at least that Cliff was a dentist. I knew he could do it. I knew he could do the deal. So what other takeaways do I have from that? Yeah, that's my first story. Does anybody have any questions about, did that spur any questions for anybody? Because this is for you. These stories are hopefully somewhat entertaining, but most of all, I hope you learn something, or even better, a lot of things. So if you have a question, what I can do, I got two people with hands raised. Oh, I raised my hand. There I go again, doing dorky things. I don't know if Aaron wants to ask a question or he was just, it was that hand raise from when I asked him to help me out. Oh, Kim, I'm so glad you're here. Hi, Lindsay. Anybody have any questions? You can type it into the chat if you don't feel comfortable talking, or you can talk. Either way is 100% fine. All right, that's okay. By the way, this is being recorded and you're all going to get a recording. So if you're furiously taking notes, you could probably relax a little bit because we're going to be, this is being recorded and it is, it's going to be sent out as soon as it gets processed, okay? All right, so let's move on to the next story. So I'm raising money. I got pretty good at raising money. That was pretty fun. And we started raising money in 2003. Then as things progressed, we bought a bunch more houses, sold them, bought buildings, became condo converters. So we'd buy an apartment building and, oh, Lindsay, raise your hand. All right, so let's back up the bus and let's see what kind of quit. Oh, 2 participants. Well, that's cute. No, that's me. Okay, I've got to stop raising my hand. Okay, Lindsay, can you hear me? You're not muted, but I can't hear you, buddy. Oh, darn. Your microphone, there must be something wonky. You can type a question into the chat. So why don't you just do that? And that's no problem. I will read it out loud. And then I'll do my best to answer as best as I possibly can. Okay, so let's just do that for now. No problemo. Okay, so here we go. Now, we move on. We're super successful, feel like the smartest people in the world because things have gone up. They've like doubled and tripled in value. We have all these houses and then we buy all these apartment buildings. And well, why am I laughing? It was terrible. We got stuck in the recession, but we were so smart for a while. We bought like 5 buildings and we made between 300,000 and 700,000 on each building. And then we ran into the recession and we had bought 5 more buildings going into the fall of 2007. We just got our asses kicked. There is not a gentler way to say it. That's what happened. It was an absolute massacre. It was a nightmare. For 4 years, we fought hard to save everything, ended up surrendering to bankruptcy protection. And that was a tough choice. It was so embarrassing and humbling. And what a lesson. And then moving forward, we started to rebuild. And I ended up moving from Edmonton with my family. I now had 5 kids in 2012. We fought hard from 2008 to about 2012, moved out to Kelowna, which is, by the way, a great place to heal. If you're looking for a place to heal, Kelowna is the place. And I was pretty lost. I starting from scratch in bankruptcy, didn't even have a credit card. I'd have like a prepaid credit card. It was really a humbling time. But you know, I still had a lot of good qualities, and I established a fairly good network, and I actually started talking about my journey. I started talking about my journey, and we ended up, you know, connecting with some folks, some motivated sellers, and acquiring some properties, no money down and no bank qualify, which was good because we didn't have hardly any money, and we certainly could not qualify for financing. So I definitely needed to raise money. And I got sidetracked like so many beautiful souls like myself, the entrepreneur, the excited person, the eager beaver. I got talked into a network marketing company. Now, I'm not here to slam network marketing companies. It's just not something that has been particularly successful for me. And I'm going to tell you a little bit why. Or about that anyway. So I threw myself into network marketing, and I wanted to go take network marketing training because, of course, that's what I did before. I took sales training, right? And I took this network marketing training with a guy named Mark Januszewski, and I joined this whole big kind of tribe of people that were all trying to make it in network marketing. And I was doing the steps and I was following the steps, but I didn't really have my heart in this product that I was trying to promote. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe if I just do more and I work harder. And I learned all this great information about presentation skills. And I also learned great information about the importance of making phone calls. And I had access to a pretty big database. And so I did this thing called a 90-day push. A 90-day push is when you set an objective to make at least like 3 to 5 contacts a day. And you want to make as many phone calls as you can, but you want to set a minimum, right? So I made, in this 90-day push, I did not miss a day where I made at least 5 contacts, which meant I had to make between 20 and 50 phone calls to mostly strangers, mostly cold calling. I'd call 99% of it cold calling. And I'd have a script, and and the next thing is you'd want to book an appointment, or you'd want to pre-screen them. And if they were a fit, then you wanted to book an appointment and do a presentation. And anyway, I made about 6,000 phone calls, did this whole program. I was getting coached by Mark, who had been a very successful network marketing promoter and trainer. And he sat down with me over the phone. He lives in Hawaii, and I was on Vancouver Island at the time on vacation with my family. And he said, Julie, you're just really terrible at network marketing. He just shot straight. And he said, your results are just positively abysmal. That's what he called my results. And it was true, because I made one sale and like 6,000 phone calls. Very, very not good. And he's like, why don't you just do real estate? Aren't you a real estate girl? And I said, well, yeah, I am. And so I went on to take some of the network marketing skills that I learned, including, just having a total, I'll pick up the phone. Ask Erin. Erin, I know I've mentioned you 6 times now in this presentation, but I am not afraid to pick up the phone. So that's one thing that you may want to get really good at, is just not being scared to pick up the phone and make phone calls and cold call and introduce yourself to people and grow your network and let people know what you're up to, because maybe somebody doesn't know you well now, but they may run into somebody someday that needs your help. Or maybe you just never know what kind of collaboration can come from making many, many phone calls. And the sooner you get over a hesitance to make phone calls, the better off you're going to be. We live in this digital world where people text and they email and they do everything through the computer. If you can get somebody on the phone, then get them on the phone. Even better if you can meet them in person, try to meet them in person, because it's just extremely powerful. And then on top of, just that, the whole, the phone never looked like a 1,000-pound brick anymore after going through a 90-day push for network marketing. I learned how to do an effective presentation. And that is something that is absolutely key to raising money. I rarely raise money without a presentation. And it's very effective and it's very efficient. And it always ends with the same question that I started with my first story, which is there any reason you would not want to move forward with this deal? So there's all these components that you want to have in a presentation. We're going to talk a little bit more about that probably next session with Mike. My point is, you just never know what some of the stepping stones on your journey are going to lead you to. Because I'm so grateful that I went into network marketing, because now my presentations are absolutely key to helping me raise funds for real estate. And by the way, I'm not somebody who, I do deals all the time. We just bought 3 properties in the last 4 months. I raised all of the money to purchase those deals. That was me, and it was close to $2 million. So, and that doesn't count the money that I coordinated with the mortgage brokers to finance the deals, which is a whole other component to raising money, because it counts, because you've got to get the money from the bank too. So I hope that second story resonates with you, especially the phone call part of things. It's hard to call people because nobody does it anymore, but it is so gosh darn effective. It is really effective, and it's really important. So I see that I have questions now. I got carried away on my story. We typed them into the, sorry, can't chat, but what was your first question to Cliff? Oh, the question to Cliff was, Cliff, is there any reason you would not want to move forward with this deal? Because he'd seen all of the information. He knew all the numbers. He knew that financing was in place. He knew about me. He knew that I'd done a lot of deals. He knew that I was going to take care of all the landlording. He understood the numbers. He knew he knew the addresses, all that kind of stuff. And so I didn't need to tell him anything else. You know, I just needed to ask that one question, which is there any reason you would not want to move forward with this deal? So let's talk about that question and why it's so important. I'll give you an example. I was doing a sales call today, hopefully onboarding in, somebody new to work with next week. And I asked the question, is there any reason you would not want to move forward? And the answer was, well, I'm a doula. And so I help bring babies into the world, and I'm waiting on a baby. I really can't make this decision until this baby is born, because it's really occupying a lot of my time and a lot of my emotional energy. And guess what, folks? I can't do anything about that, right? I can't make a baby come. I've had somebody say, yeah, I don't like condos. I would never invest in a condo. I can't do anything about that either. And then if somebody says, but if there's something I can fix, okay, let's say I'm offering to do a joint venture, or actually just maybe I'm getting a hard money lender, which I kind of like to think of as a joint venture, but somebody that's going to basically loan me money and I'm going to pay them a fixed rate. Let's say I've got this really sweet deal and it has tons and tons of equity in it, or there's going to be a ton of upside. And I ask, is there any reason you would not want to move forward with this deal? Let's say the prospect says, and actually this has happened, the prospect, this was Chris, he said, I was offering him 10% on his money. He said, I said, is there any reason you don't want to move forward? He said, yeah, I want to make 12. So I said, okay, well, if I can pay you 12%, is there any other reason that you would not want to move forward? And he said, no. And I said, well, I could pay you 12, and we got it done. All right, because I could do something about that. I knew my math well enough to know that I could do that. So I hope that makes sense. Kind of went off on a tangent on that question. But that's good information. I know it is. Awesome. So yeah, Shelly, you're not even here anymore. That's okay. No problem. All right, let's move forward to Okay, this is really great. This is really great. The third scenario I wanted to talk about Kim, let's see if I can get you on here. I'm going to allow you to talk. Can you hear me, Kim?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. That's good.
Okay. Well, thanks for allowing me to speak.
Nice to hear you.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So now I'm nervous and I forgot my question, but
Okay. Was it about closing?
no, I've remembered it. I got it.
Okay.
Do you recommend doing this with friends and family? Because I know there could be, well, business is business, right? And
Yep.
it can get really complicated with people you know and love.
Yes. I think that is an absolutely, I'm so glad you answered. I'm so glad you asked that question. I did a deal with my dad, and this is how we did it. I said, Dad, I'm going to take my business, I'm going to take my family, my daughter hat off now, and I'm going to put my business hat on. And I need you to do the same. You got to take your dad hat off. You got to put your business hat on. And now we're going to have a business talk. And I want us to be really clear that we only talk about business when we have our business hats on and when we've scheduled an appointment to talk business. That way, when we see each other in the holidays and when you come to visit me and we're just, laying around in the living room or whatever, watching TV or we go on the boat, we don't have to think about talking about business, because that's going to be when we're wearing our family hats. I'm going to be wearing my daughter hat. And you're going to be wearing your grandpa hat or whatever. So I have a conversation like that. And I say, is that okay with you? Will that work for you? Because I really think that that's the best way for us to move forward together. And if they're not okay with it, then it's probably not a good idea to do business. But my dad, I told you a little bit about, he's an entrepreneur, and he's like, that's a great idea. And it worked well for us. So is that helpful? Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. And we had an experience where we bought a house with my mom, my husband and I. We were living in the house, shared the house 50-50. We had a deal where we would, own it until my youngest was 18 and graduating from high school, and then see, right? If the market's good, let's sell it, and the kids are on the way, blah, blah, blah. But because of her financial situation, that happened too early, we had to sell it. And I just thought, and if it was a business relationship, we might be able to, handle it a different way, but it was because it was my mom and we live in this house and she really needed to sell it. We just had to do it. And I just thought, never again will I do this with people I care about, because lives change and things can happen and jobs are lost, or, all those things can happen. And the emotions got too involved, and oh man, huge lesson.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's a fit to do it and sometimes it's not. It could have easily gone the other way with me too. I just find having these conversations, like there's so much to that as far as setting things up well up front, and managing expectations. It still creates, especially right after, awkwardness at holidays, right?
Yeah. I think you're right. The upfront, these are kind of the rules, and how we'll handle a variety of different situations. And yeah, just make sure it's in depth, not just like, yay, we bought this house, oh, it's gonna be great.
It's never going to have any problems. Are you kidding me? Houses come with problems. I just got a new roof and I still got ice damming because we didn't do the insulation properly. It's like, so yeah, I totally hear you. I recommend regular meetings, update meetings. I just, this doesn't, maybe it kind of relates. My father-in-law just passed away in the last 8 weeks. And it was very, very sad, but it's also a good thing because He's in a better place now. And it really woke me up to my dad. And so like I planned a trip there, and I said, you and I need to, let's have a meeting, and I want to talk about your estate and really get things figured out. So we're going to take off our family hats now. I did it again. And we're going to put on our business hats, because I want to, I want things to be smooth for all of us if something should happen to you. And so like that worked well again. It worked out really well again. So that's definitely something that's worked for me in the past. So I hope that helps you. So, okay. I've got a third. Do I have any more questions? No. We're good to go. Awesome. Third scenario that I wanted to talk about. This is a very recent investor who, deal partner, I should call them deal partners, I shouldn't call them investors. Okay, let's go over that real quick, okay, while we're talking about joint ventures. As a real estate investor, when somebody does the deal with you and they are a deal partner, that's what you should refer to them as, not an investor. And you're not looking for investors. You are looking for deal partners, whether you're paying them a set rate or a percentage of ownership. You can get in a lot of trouble if you label yourself or what you have going on as an investment, unless you have a mortgage broker's license or some kind of licensure to promote investments. I don't. So the people that work with me are lenders and deal partners. So I think I said investors a bunch of times already, though. That's my bad. Really get in the habit of using the language of deal partner, looking for partners. We're looking for people to create a win-win on a real estate opportunity. You want to be very careful with the word investment and investors. Okay, great. We went over that. So this deal partner that I was working with, such a nice man. He ended up not being a fit. Now, I try to do everything in steps. So when I meet somebody and we're going to have a pre-screening conversation, I do an upfront contract. So the upfront contract goes something like this. Okay, over the are you good for time? I want to make sure they're good for time. Over the next 15 minutes, you're going to have some questions for me about my background, what it is that I do, maybe about the opportunity that we have. And I'm going to have some questions for you about your background. I might want to talk a little bit about finances. I'd like to know what your experience is in real estate. And I'd also like to know about how you go about making decisions. And at the end of this conversation, we are going to decide whether or not it makes sense for us to work together. Blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. Call it an upfront contract. I get into it more in depth in the next couple of sessions that we're going to have. So this beautiful guy, great guy, he was pre-screened. He was totally qualified, but I left something out. I usually in my upfront contract say, I'd like to know about how you go about making a decision. I left it out that time because every time I have a meeting, I can usually deconstruct things if something went a little bit sideways. And I asked my closing question because I knew he was qualified and presented him the opportunity. And I asked him at the end, is there any reason you would not want to move forward? And he said, no. And I was like, fantastic. This is so great. So we established a clear next step. We set up a meeting for a week later to just keep things on track. We knew, I walked him through what he needed to do next, and then we set up an appointment to meet again. The next day, I got an email from him asking about 12 different questions from his accountant. His accountant had 12 questions, and I'm not an accountant, right? And I said, and I thought back on the meeting, on when I pre-screen him and when I presented to him, and I did ask if his wife was part of the decision-making process, but I didn't ask if anybody else was part of the decision-making process. So a good way to approach this is to say, okay, I know your wife is or your husband is part of your decision-making process. Should they be at the presentation, do you think? I asked that. He said, no, she doesn't need to be at the presentation, but you know, I will run this past her. Okay, awesome, great. I should have also said, do you have anybody else, like an advisor, like maybe a financial advisor or an accountant? And it's at that point that would have come up. Yes, I'm going to show him everything. And then I should have said, well, should your accountant maybe be at this presentation too? And at that point, I would have known better and been better prepared that his accountant had such a strong influence on whether or not he was going to move forward. Anyway, long story made longer, that we didn't move forward because his accountant was not comfortable with Olympia Trust. And that's who I usually do RRSP RRSP lending with for mortgages. So people, you may or may not know this, but you can use your retirement savings or your LIRA or your TFSA, and you can use them as mortgages on property. And I do a lot of that. And I would have known a lot sooner. And I would have been about, you know, we exchanged 22 emails before it was finally determined, okay, I don't think your accountant is comfortable with this. And, you know, he said the same. He's like, no, my accountant is not comfortable with this. And his accountant was a major decision maker. So we did not move forward, but it was a good learn, you know, and I took it into the next, I took it definitely into the next meeting that I had, making sure that I asked, okay, who else helps you with these kinds of decisions? Your wife? Do you have an accountant? Do you have a lawyer? Do you have a brother-in-law? Do you have a dad? Anybody? And yeah, they'll just make things much more efficient and effective. So that is that. Yes, very, very good. I have a couple of book recommendations I'd also like to recommend. Does anybody have any questions about that scenario? All right. So our next event, and this will be with Mike for sure. It is going to be on January. Oh gosh, is it January 11th? Today's January 11th. It's going to be January 14th, which is this coming Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we're going to be talking about all kinds of other things. Some of these stories may repeat because they bear repeating, but we're going to be talking with Mike, who has even more experience in real estate investing than I do. I've done over 300 deals and I've raised over $100 million for real estate investing, and he's done way more than that. And so we're just going to have a great conversation. Before I leave you, I want to point out for a lot of the sales meetings that I go into, I like to prepare by reviewing sales books. So one of my favorite ones is called Exactly What to Say, right, by Phil M. Jones. So grab that at your local bookstore or on Amazon. And the other book that I highly recommend that you review or get on Audible or just somehow get in the practice of reading kind of over and over again is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I just find they both help. They both really help me get warmed up for a sales meeting. And it's surprising. I did not do this in my last sales meeting. And this person needed a week to think about it. So I'm like, why didn't I review my book? Because I forgot what to say. I forgot exactly what to say. So I highly recommend those two books. Kim, I think you're raising your hand again. So I'm going to call on you. I'm asking you to unmute. Did you raise your hand again?
I did.
Hi.
Thanks for calling on Megan. Hi.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're here.
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about using LIRA, RSP, TFSA money.
I can. So I have, you know what? I can just send you a whole recording on
Sure.
that.
Yep.
It goes through it pretty thoroughly. And then Kim, if you have any other questions, you just reach out to me. And the reason why I'm not going to go over it too thoroughly right now is just because it usually takes me about an hour.
Gotcha.
So, and by the way, everybody, I'll send it, you know, since this is on the recording, I'll include it in a link on the recording email that I send out. So everybody will get it. Essentially, what you can do, I'll just say quickly, Cole's notes, you can take your RSPs, but you can't use your own without tax consequences, okay? And it has to be arm's length, meaning you cannot borrow anybody's RSPs, TFSAs, or any kind of registered savings plan. You can't borrow anybody's that is related to you by blood, marriage, or business, okay? So you can't own a business with them or be married to them or be related to them. So it can't be like mom and a dad, brother, or anything like that, or cousins, really either, like first cousins. You can use somebody's retirement savings plan and change it from where it is. It's usually in some kind of a stock situation, usually with some, you know, in some kind of plan, some kind of investing plan. It can be converted, staying in RSP, to a self-directed RSP. And again, same with LIRA and TFSA and even RESP. It can be self-directed, and in a self-directed form, it can turn into a mortgage. So that money can actually be placed on property in first, second, or third position. And it's got a bunch of criteria that you gotta, you know, fall within, but it can be placed on property. And I love that. And the people that I work with love it because they usually have a predictable outcome. Their money is very safe because it's on dirt, bricks, and sticks in property that people are living in. So they're very likely to, you know, it's their house, it's their shelter. So I'm a huge fan. I'll include the link here. Okay. And I'll just send it directly to you there, Kim. Okay. That's no problem whatsoever. Okay. So I think we're going to wrap up. I've talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. I do appreciate the questions that I had. If you think of anything, you're going to get the recording. You can just reply to me and ask questions, or if you just find me, direct message me, send me an email. If you're here, you know, you should know at least somebody who knows how to find me. Okay. So I'm always happy to talk real estate investing, and I love, you know, helping other people grow their money. And I'm sure if you're here, you do too. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you either Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or the 25th, which is, I think, the following, it's like a weekend, a Tuesday after that at 10 a.m. So you'll get emails about it. If you're here, you'll be finding out about the other sessions, and they are going to be different and awesome and still very exciting. So we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot for being here. Bye-bye.